This is the France 24 debate. 22 dead, at least, in the clashes in Algeria between Arabs and Berbers. Is this just local difficulty, or is it a sign that the wind of change could be blowing across the Algerian desert? The Berber people are ancient, established in the region before Islam, according to my colleagues here on France 24's Arabic channel. Berber people have their own language, their own culture, and they are extremely proud of that. The clashes in the desert are, on the surface, about jobs, about a lack of opportunities and poverty. But how deep does this run? Is there a potential here for the type of change seen since 2011 in neighbouring states across North Africa, Egypt, Tunisia, Libya? That's our debate. Let's bring you our guests. On one side of our studio, William Jordan, former State Department officer posted to Algiers. Sir, thank you for being with us here on France 24. On the other side of our studio, we have Hossein Malti, an oil executive who knows Algeria and Libya extremely well. Sir, now based in Paris, thank you for being with us. How do you both read this situation where we have obviously people being killed here in violent situations, worrying situations? Do you feel, Hossein, I'll bring you in first, do you feel there is something more to it than just some angry people on a street?
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, these two ethnies, I mean, the Ibadit, as they call them, the Berbers, which are Ibadit, and the Arabs, they have always lived in peace, you know, and there was never problems between them. So the problem started about 2 years ago, and just by curiously, I mean, it was the time when Mr. Bouteflika was presenting himself for the fourth mandate as president. So then, definitely these clashes are manipulated somewhere. There are some forces inside of the country. There are probably forces outside of the country which are manipulating. I mean, both groups of people. I mean, why and who is doing that and so forth? It's very difficult to say. But you mentioned Libya, you mentioned Tunisia, you mentioned Syria, Iraq, and so forth. Maybe just the turn of Algeria.
You think it might be the turn of Algeria? Hossein, bear with us. William Jordan, I'll bring you in now. From your experience of the area, and bear in mind what Hossein's just said about manipulation, what do you think?
I don't have such a stark view of the situation. What's going on in Ghardaia and the surrounding area can be traced back decades. Certainly, it can be traced back over the last 2.5 years or so. There's a very real tension, sort of an ethno-sectarian tension that's going on between the Berber populations, that predominate in that area and are in the city of Ghardaia, and the Sunni Arabs that also have been moving in greater numbers, and there's inevitable tension as you have the Mzabi'in, as they're called, the Berbers, resenting the encroachments by the Shambi as they come in, taking housing, getting some opportunities at the expense, or as it's perceived, of the Mzabi'in. The problem, and it speaks to a larger issue in Algeria, which is where the danger potentially lies, and that is that in a country that is as volatile and in which the political leadership of the country has been unable to address the basic socioeconomic needs of the population for so many years, and when there is so much mismanagement, when there is so much corruption, when there is so much that is not able to play out in a transparent and accountable way, the only mechanism by which most people have to manifest their grievances is through violent protest. Now, clearly something has happened that has altered the dynamic so that clashes that were violent but did not lead to the killing of so many people in such a short period of time has changed. Whether this is a reflection of a perception of a vacuum of power or problems at the top of the Algerian hierarchy, I don't know. But I would stress that while there are potentially signals here about problems in Algeria, they're long-standing problems, and I would also caution that I don't think that Algeria as a nation state is in fundamental danger any more than the riots, which were civil rights in nature in the United States. And these are civil rights in nature in Algeria. In Ferguson or in Baltimore, represented a fundamental questioning or challenge to the national unity of the United States.
Can I ask you about the Libyan connection, Hossein? Do you feel there might be something malignant coming from there, as we've seen it on the other side of their border, of course, but recently in Tunisia? It's indications of whether there's some kind of influence from Islamic State or some kind of terror group.
These clashes?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
You don't think
I
so?
don't think that
Which obviously is a good thing, if that's the case.
Yeah, no, I don't think that there's any connection with Libya there. No, it's just inside the country.
It must make you feel very frustrated when you think about the potential that Algeria has. William was talking about the political situation. Obviously, Bouteflika is someone we should speak about in a moment. But tell us about the potential that Algeria has in terms of its oil, in terms of what it could do.
I mean, Algeria is definitely a rich country. I mean, the oil production is pretty high. Algeria produces about 55, 60 million tons a year of oil, just oil, plus about 60 billion cubic meters of gas, which are exported, plus gasoline, plus. So the country is rich. Unfortunately, the population is poor. There are so many incompetence just really to how to use that money. Plus corruption makes the situation very bad for the citizens.
William was talking about the power vacuum. Obviously, Bouteflika re-elected on 88% of the votes that were cast. We can read into that whatever we like, given how votes in democratic countries go and never return anybody with that kind of a figure. But it's too easy to say that Bouteflika himself is just the problem, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what's happening now is, and I said it's the perception of a power vacuum or the allegations of a power vacuum at the top. You know, there's things have shifted from a narrative that continued even through the recent elections in Algeria to the effect that what you had was a corrupt elite, the sort of pouvoir, as it was called, dominated by military and security services that was carving up all of the economic goodies and distributing them among themselves within the country, to one since just before the election, saying that you're basically moving into a situation where there's nobody in charge at the top, that it's a man in a wheelchair in diapers who's basically running the country or trying to run or pretending to run the country.
It's a shocking situation, that, isn't it?
Well, it looks like a shocking situation, but I'm somebody who, I'm not here to defend President Bouteflika, but I have met him on occasions. I have been in meetings with him. I do understand something about how he operates and about how the regime operates. I don't think the problem is that he is disconnected or that he's not mentally able to carry on. The problem is larger than that. The problem is that the regime does not have the depth or the ability to sort of be able to delegate power or operate in a manner that is transparent and accountable. And this leads to, as Mr. Malti just mentioned, the corruption and the problems related to the poor distribution of the country's wealth. I mean, in a country that produces as much oil and gas as Algeria does, it should be in a stronger position to be able to weather the storms that it is. With the price of oil and gas dropping again, the pouvoir in Algeria is basically facing the repeat of the disastrous episode that occurred in the 1980s when the same thing happened, which led to social and economic dislocation, which led to riots across the country that were more than just these sort of specific grievances playing out violently. Into a movement that could, in the current context, threaten again to remove the existing power structure from office and force the country into another prolonged period of wider and more serious disruption. I mean, that's down the road. But the problem for Algeria is that when you have a president who is perceived to be as weakened and as out of touch as President Bouteflika currently is. Again, I don't entirely buy into this. When that narrative takes hold and you have situations like this playing out, it undercuts any sort of greater sense of confidence in the government's ability to react. In the next few days, it will be critical to see whether, I mean, now that the Prime Minister and a governmental delegation have gone down to Ghardaia to meet with local leaders, whether anything more concrete develops to try to put an end to these serious clashes that, as I say, have been playing out for close to 2 years now in that area.
So in terms of, I'll say Arab Spring, maybe that's a phrase that's loaded with too many meanings because we've seen what happened in Egypt and in Tunisia and, of course, in Libya. But are we looking at some kind of social change, do you feel? Do you feel there's a kind of wave which is going through, something which will have more of a lasting effect? Will the Berbers get some kind of autonomy? Will there be some kind of change on that level, do you think?
No, I don't think so. And one of the reasons I don't think so is because Berbers across Algeria in different regions have been waging this battle. I mean, in the Kabylie region, much closer to Algiers, there has been for the past 30 years or so a significant set of confrontations that have rolled through and rising and falling waves that has netted a recognition of their claims, a recognition of their identity, a recognition of certain linguistic and cultural claims, but has not led to any serious change in the nature of how power is distributed in the country in order to allow for that greater sense of their identity, their cultural and linguistic identity, to have any political or practical effect in terms of how people's lives might be changed for the better.
It still leaves lots of questions.
There's nothing that leads to greater empowerment and a lessening of the power of the central state.
Well, Seen, in terms of what happens next, I mean, clearly you've talked about the potential of Algeria, its riches. How would you like to see this situation concluded? Clearly, we want peace on the streets. We want both sides to live together happily. But how do you see this being resolved?
I'm afraid it's a very serious problem, because the problem is not only the problem didn't start today. It started a few years ago, and all over the Sahara, not only in Ghardaia, people they don't get any part of the wealth which is in the Sahara. The oil is there, but the people from Ghardaia, from Wargla, from Insala, from all the cities in the Tamaras, they just don't see anything from that. There is no investments which are made. So the problem is very, very serious, and I'm afraid that the end will not be good.
And the oil and the gas are running out.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm afraid we need to leave it there. Hossein Malti, thank you, sir, very much indeed for your thoughts. And William Jordan, as ever, great to see you here on the channel. That concludes this part one of our debate, but stay tuned for part two.